This is going to be a fun one. There was something that trended on Madden Twitter the other day and also college football Twitter, kind of, with the idea that zone KOs were either overpowered or they weren't good enough. And then there was also an argument that came from that of like consistency of should this ball be knocked out every single time? Should it not be? What should that look like? And I think that actually goes into a much bigger question that kind of goes into really like how every interaction on the virtual football field should go. Should there be probability playing into it? Should it just be a yes no type answer where this always happens? And then how do different things interact with each other? And I think very, very much this actually stems all the way back, or you have to take a big step back here and look at why you're playing the game and what point of view you play the game from. Okay. Because there's really like two, you can maybe say three, but really two main ways that people want to play the game. Okay. And I really believe this. There's one, there's the comp guys, okay? And I do believe a lot of people like play for competitive reasons more than they believe. But essentially, these are the guys who are trying to play with the whole intention of I want to be better than you, and I want to win the game when I am better than you. And at that same moment, if you are better than me, you should win the game, right? Those are the comp guys. Anybody who kind of has that line of thinking, and that's what they want, and that's what they expect out of the game. I'm better than you in this game. I win. You're better than me in this game. You win. Okay, very straightforward. Sim guys want a little bit more of a real football experience. They want to see a little bit of what happens on actual Sundays and Saturdays translate to the video game. With that comes a lot more fluke type things because that football, if you've ever played or actually watched football and like watched it more than just, sit back, drinking a beer and actually watched, there's a lot of fluke that happens on a football field every single time, especially if you really look at it from like a coach's point of view. Because one of the craziest things is that everybody on like, and this is very, very true, on any particular play, everybody you can have the perfect play call. Everybody on offense can execute perfectly. But if one guy slips, one guy makes a minor mistake, one guy hesitates for too long, whatever it might be, right? The pulling guard, he misses, he everything's perfect. All he has to do is trap block this a defensive tackle coming through, and he just slips, right? And now this trap defender is coming free and blowing up a run, which would have been a 50-yard gain. That in Madden terms would be fluke, right? That to an NFL coach would be like, dude, what are we doing? Like, are you serious? Because that coach is kind of feeling cheated in that moment, right? That is stuff that emulates real football that, from a sim point of view, fluky stuff should be in the video game, right? Think about a fumbled snap. That is insane fluke. That doesn't happen, but sometimes it does, right? It happened in the first snap of a Super Bowl with, I think it was Broncos, Peyton Manning went over his head. What do you even do if you're the coach? And the thing is, we playing the game, we're the coaches, right? So simulation wise, any interaction comes down to these ideas. And we're gonna, for this interaction, we're gonna paint the picture of a receiver catches the ball and then he gets hit. Okay. He gets hit within a step or so. So it's a contact catch in traffic. Like he's got to hold on to that rock. It's a combination of, in my opinion, two things. Okay. One, the situation itself, which this right here takes into the idea of um let's go momentum, right, between the wide receiver and the defender. There's a lot of physics that play into this. It's a massive formula. A lot of physics play into this. Where the defender's hitting the receiver, where the catch point is, just different things like that, right? That actually are like happening on the field. A lot of variables inside of this. Then there's also the ratings formula, which is the receivers catching traffic, the defender's hit power, the defender's maybe coverage stats, whatever it might be. And then actually inside of the same thing, abilities can play a factor here too. Now, that's a little bit more of a conversation that people are very split on this, whether or not abilities should just increase the odds or the abilities should be matter of fact, right? But for simulation standpoint, this very much should be a massive formula, and then at the end of that formula, or what at the end of that equation, it's 90% of the time it's going to be a catch. 10% of the time it's going to be a incompletion. Receiver's going to drop it, and then there's a coin flip or there's a dice roll, whatever you want to call it. And if it lands on the 90% time, receiver catches it. Lands on that 10%, dude's going to drop it. And now that happens on every single interaction in the field. Think about 5 offensive linemen blocking 5 defensive linemen. That interaction is happening all the way throughout there as well. Obviously a little slightly different variables, but it's the same idea. Now, and I think for simulation, that makes a ton of sense, right? I think that's football, baby, right? The same interaction happening 1,000 times in real football does not read in the same result every single time. That's not how it works. Now, let's look at it from more of a competitive perspective, right? Because when you play the game, and if you are better than me in this game, you outperform me, you should beat me. You want that to happen, right? You don't even want the idea of fluke to be in the game, if that's your perspective. But let's say that that is. In that case, we don't actually like the idea of 90% and 10%, like I said in that situation. Why? Because let's say we each throw 10 of those balls, but I get the favorable odds, the odds that I'm looking for all 10 times. Let's just say I get really lucky, right? And I get the favorable odds all 10 times. And then you only get the favorable odds 5 times. Well, just by that, we both did the same exact thing, right? We both did exactly the same thing, but I got way better results than you. That'd kind of piss you off, right? Especially, let's say there's some money on the line. Let's say you're grinding a leaderboard. Let's say there's, and in every Madden game, actually, especially in MUT, there is money, right? There's coins, which that literally equals actual USD, right? Or whatever. Most of my audience is American, but there's a few Canadians that watch this, maybe a couple people from Europe. I don't know. But so there's actual like tangible things that are on the line here, and you're getting screwed based off of chance, right? If we take the same idea and let's go to me and you both run halfback stretch to the right 10 times, okay? And we have everything's exactly the same formation, same defense, same user, same player, same everything, okay? But my defensive end, 5 of those times sheds your tight end, and I tackle you in the backfield for a loss of 3. And then when I run it, your defensive end never sheds for whatever. It's just because it's a dice roll, right? It's an it's an interaction thing. Well, shoot, you'd be like, damn, you just got kind of cheated on that, right? And so from a competitive standpoint, I hate probability. I do. And I think it's damn near impossible to take completely out of the game, but we've had things that are closer to it being out of the game. And I'll give an example of that in a second. But the reason behind that is because when I do something and I make the decision, especially like if I make this decision, you should be rewarded for making that right decision. It shouldn't be an odds-based thing because it's an odds-based thing, and 90% of the time you'll be rewarded, but 10% of the time you won't be, even if it's the right decision. Well, then in that case, you're being punished if it hits that 10% for making the wrong decision. That's bad, right? And let's think about this at the biggest standpoint, right? Instead of just a catch, let's say a throw out a sack pick, right? Let's say 5 out of 10 times we each 10 times we each both hit the quarterback exactly the same defender, same defense, same everything, okay? 5 out of those 10 times I get a defensive line pick. You get a defensive line pick 1 time. Same exact situation. You'd be like, what the? Like, I'm getting screwed. That sucks, right? And I think that obviously sucks. I think it super, super sucks. I hate that, again, in comp because there's actual things being tied to it, which I think we should remove all those types of probabilities and have very specific statements. Madden 20 killed it in this area, believe it or not, in the passing game. Madden 20 gets hated on a lot for what happened in the run game. Whatever, I'm going to put all that stuff aside. Madden 20 had things called like post flag, which was a wide receiver ability where if your wide receiver ran a post route and you threw it to him and he got his hands on the ball, right? Now, it couldn't be like an aggressive catch. It couldn't be something like that, but just simply he got his hands on the ball. He caught it 100% of the time. And that was one of the best things ever as an offensive player and for a defensive player because both people knew what was going to happen when that ball was thrown, essentially, right? Which that allows people to actually make better decisions, right? Imagine if in chess, right? Sometimes the rook was able to go all the way up or all the way to the side, but sometimes you just randomly, not this time, you can't. And if you just random, I was like, actually, you're trying to move your rook? Yeah, he can go in one spot, so you can move him one spot this time, buddy. You'd be like, what the? That's stupid, right? Because you want consistency. So that's like that in a nutshell is why, and that I think consistency creates bigger and bigger skill gap because when something's consistent, you can start to predict it. When you can start to predict it, you become better at predicting it, better at recognizing the situation that this thing happens in. And if you're better at doing that than somebody else is, you're probably better at them than that. And then if you're able to execute, which is a massive thing, execution's huge, you're able to execute those things better than they are, well, shoot, you're just better than them, right? You see that in the passing game all the time. Now, when it comes to mid zones, I think one of the biggest skill gaps in this game is simply recognizing a defense, recognizing the open spaces, recognizing the timing of when a receiver is crossing into one of those open spaces or getting into one of those areas and hitting him. Okay. And I think the smaller those open spaces are, the harder that is, right? Because that's fair. Smaller areas to hit, harder it is. And something being harder means it takes more skill to be able to do successfully and to be able to do at a high level. That in and of itself is skill gap. So things like mid zone KO or any kind of zone KOs, I love because they make one of the biggest skill gaps, in my opinion, which is identifying how to throw the ball and who to throw the ball to and how to pass lead and what type of pass to do and how to click on a catch and all those things, right? It makes that way more of a skill gap right there. And then you take away all the inconsistencies of, randomly, oh, sometimes it's knocked out, sometimes it's not, oh, whatever, whatever. No, you just make that a flat if yes, if this, then that, if this, then that statement, right? If this situation, then that. You eliminate all the fluke and you're raising the skill gap. That's a comp game. That is incredibly comp. That is so freaking comp, right? You can think of the same idea. Imagine a 50-50 jump ball. Sometimes you pick it, sometimes you don't. That is so annoying, dude. Because what if me and you both throw one 50-50 ball? Like, just lob it up to Calvin. I throw it, I'm putting my nutsack on your head. I catch it for a touchdown. You throw it, my DB picks it. I mean, what the heck, man? But all this little rant I just had the past 5-6 minutes or so, that's all from a comp point of view. If you were coming at this with more of a simulation point of view, which is so valid, it's different than what I do, which is fine. We're allowed to be different. If that's what it is, then it should go back into that ratings, that kind of rating situation that I talked about, that little matchup, right? Where it's like, oh, Calvin Johnson on Kindle Vildor, the Lions like fourth, fifth string DB. Yeah, Calvin's gonna catch that 95% of the time, probably like 85% of the time. I don't know what that odds would look like, and it's like sometimes he will, sometimes he won't, and that's just hooping because that is more football than what I said with the comp thing. So just some thoughts on what that is. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Please be respectful. That's the biggest thing because again, I don't think there's a right or wrong. It really depends on like how you see the game and how you actually want to play the game and what experience you're looking for. With that being said, boys, if you're new to the channel, consider that subscribe button. Go try out civil.gg if you want to get better at the game as well. Use code P30 for 30% off. You get all of our offensive schemes. We have over 400 pieces of content on that site. And I said offensive. We have offensive and defensive and weekly content that comes out all the time. So there's that. I'll see you guys all over there. Again, link, top of the description.